Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. My name is Dave. I'm one of the admins of the ADHD Men's Support Group, and I also run a YouTube channel called The Spiritual Gentleman. I'm here today with one of our fellow members. I would consider him a good friend, my buddy Judd. And if you are interested of doing an interview with me, please let me know in the comments below, or reach out to me, and we can go from there. But Judd has been part of the group for the last year or so, I believe. Um, and
About
Judd, please introduce yourself and a little bit about yourself.
sure. My name is Judd Groden. I'm a clinical social worker in the state of New York. I've been that way clinically. I've been working in social work for a while, doing therapy with people, probably privately for the last 2 years, working at a clinic for the last probably 2.5 years, and worked before that. I've been involved with ADHD groups and stuff like that for pretty much my whole life in various ways, shapes, or form. And I've kind of been able to be successful doing that. And I like to be able to kind of be able to give back. But I've learned most about my experiences of being able to grow into the profession I am now is being able to see that being able to give back to people, being able to improve that type of stuff helps me feel better. To be able to feel it's a little bit of selfishness, but we all kind of do a little stuff that's a little bit selfish. But I feel like for me, my biggest thing is I try to be able to be um, compassionate, try to be myself, and try to work towards doing that. So I think kind of reaching toward the goal of being able to make a difference for me is really what's important. So for me, it's kind of I've got a master's degree, I got all those type of experiences. It wasn't for the place where I thought I was going to be when I started, which we'll get to another time. But for me, the biggest thing that I got for me is that I've learned how to be able to find myself doing different things, and I think that that's the key to success. So I'm not sure if that
That's
answers your question, but
yeah, no, that's amazing. And so I would love to know of like, when were you diagnosed? Were you diagnosed as a kid or were you diagnosed later in life?
I was diagnosed when I was 4.5 years old.
Oh, wow. So a very young age.
Yeah.
And then how did you feel like that affected your kind of like your schooling or growing up? How did ADHD affect kind of like your growing up? How did that make you kind of feel?
So the backstory with that is that my mom basically was told by my teacher that if I didn't get diagnosed and didn't get things, that they'd hold me back from classes. So I had to get some type of treatment to do that, because it was either I was going to be held back or I was going to have to get treatment. So my mom kind of did it that way. And so what happened was I originally got into self-contained classes, which was kind of more like, for people that don't live in the United States, it's more like kind of like special education, more kind of like smaller classrooms, kind of people that are that need more kind of assistance in various ways. Uh, Usually people that are a little bit have more challenges, that need a kind of slower process of things. And then I moved my way up from there. But it definitely had an impact for me because I didn't feel like I belonged there. I felt like I was more intelligent than people that were there, and I felt like, why am I here? This doesn't make any sense to me because I know more. I'm more intelligent and more capable than these people. So why am I placed here? So I think the biggest thing for me was is I didn't really feel like, no matter what step I was, that I felt like I was in my tribe of people. Because what happened was, so my story is that I grew out of that to be in a more special education class, which more assistance, to being able just to have people like a one-on-one person there with speech, OT, PT, to going into regular classes, to having no type of people there with me, to being able to go into some honors classes, being able to do well. And pretty much I got like an A average from like sixth grade to 12th grade, grade 12, through every quarter, every part of the thing since that point in time. So I went from a place where I was possibly being controlled to be held back, to being able to, for them even want to take away my services because I was doing as well as I was. So, and the thing was is that I got, over time, I would go to these places and feel like I was more, places where people that were the same type of like intelligence level, or I was at a better level there, at least more closer with that. But then there was a different thing where I was kind of just different than other people in a way that kind of didn't make sense, because I felt like I was intelligent. I felt like I knew what was going on, but there was something off that put me in a different place than these other people. So
I,
it was kind of
I
like
I totally relate to that because I was put in because I was diagnosed at 9, and then in high school, I was put in a few special education classes, and it was like I knew I was intelligent enough, and like I was like pretty smart, and like, but that feeling of like, why am I here? Like I don't like because I don't like doing my homework. I don't like certain things, and it was just like I never felt like I belonged there, and I felt like kind of ostracized. Did you ever feel like um ostracized from your other classmates for being in the kind of the special ed? Did you ever get like that was my experience of kind of always kind of being kind of bullied and picked on. Did you ever have any experience like that growing up in those and during that time?
Yeah, I was bullied significantly for a long part of my childhood when I was in school. Probably from I don't probably at least like second or third grade up until probably about 11th, 10th grade, pretty much on a regular daily basis. It wasn't physical, but it was verbal pretty much on a daily basis at school. Kind of definitely had an impact where I felt like for me, I enjoyed being excelling in school, but I like dreaded going to school every day because I knew what kind of things were going to be in store for me. Kind of like I'm not, looking back on it, probably part of it was me and part of it was them. Because I kind of isolated myself. I kind of tried to hold back and kind of like control like kind of when I could come out with it because every time I would say stuff, or the more I kind of because I had verbal, like I just kind of spewed everything out of my mouth verbally. I didn't really know what I was doing, and it kind of was like I'm emotional. I'm speaking all the time about stuff. I'm raising my hand because I know the answer to this stuff, so I'm going to raise my hand because I know the answer. But I don't know the consequences of that is going to be that I'm going to be a socially leopard. So what happened with that is that I kind of was like, they see that I'm emotional, they see that I have all different type of differences, and that was a great way, as long as me be having late puberty, to be able to have all those things together made it an easy target for me to be able to be verbally picked on a regular basis. Which definitely had an impact on my ability to have socialization and kind of my self-esteem for a long time. It was not an easy thing growing up to be able to do that. So, but I made it through the end because I knew for me that the only ticket out was that I had to basically, I felt like for me, in the end, it was like, I'm going to prove to these people, to the world, that whatever happens with this stuff, that I'm smart enough and that I'm good enough because I know that I can do this stuff and I'm going to get out of here because this is not going to last forever and I need to get out of here. And if I don't get out of here and do this, then what's the point of going through all this process if I don't go out there and do it? So, yeah.
That's the yeah, no, like kind of churning that of like turning it into that kind of like fuck you energy of like no, I can prove it. And then as you're saying, from like you're saying about from like sixth to all the way through high school, like you were like putting more honors classes and getting like good grades and everything else. So at what point, so where did you end up going to do your college or university? And were you going to go into social work? Was that something that you were kind of passionate about from the beginning, or is that something that kind of evolved while you were going into college?
It evolved. Originally, I went to a college for sports and entertainment. I was going to do sports and entertainment marketing originally because I was really involved in sports and really loved it and kind of had a passion with it. And I got accepted to Drexel University, which is in Pennsylvania. And I was thinking about going there. I was about 17 years old. I, was one of the younger people in my school. So if I went to college, I was going to be 17. And it kind of was overwhelming because I have all these social issues of being able to deal with this stuff. And I'd have to go on my own to a place I've never been before with that stuff. So I kind of got a little bit frightened. And so I went to more of a local college and went to a school for business administration. I had like a partial scholarship. I went there for a few years. I kind of struggled a little bit being able to do all the work and kind of feeling stressed out because what happened was I felt like I'm smart and I have all these stuff, but I'm not happy. So what's the point of me doing all this stuff because I'm not happy? I see all the things around there. I have these people, have these more things that I want. I'm not having these things that I want. I'm not, able to get, have the relationships with women that I want. I'm not able to have these type of things. It's not that I'm not able. I'm just having trouble doing it. So I felt like I'm having trouble doing it. That what's the point of me doing anything else? Was this a rational thing? Probably not. But for me, I was like, I'm doing all this work. I'm working working really, really hard. And then I'm, in this place. So, I kind of was not as motivated. So what happened was after about 2 years, I transferred out to another college for business administration. And then I was there for about a couple semesters. Felt like it was not right for me, that this other college was not, um, not up to what I can be able to do. And then I tried to transfer to another college, and I got a degree in history in my undergraduate. I was turned off to social work because my dad was involved in social work and he worked all the time. And I felt like I didn't want to be that person that had to work every single day all the time. And I felt like, it wasn't me being involved with other people, like not having him around. I felt like I was just going to basically be that person. I didn't want to be that person. So it was kind of like I was pushed away from it because I felt like that was going to be my life and he was going to be the same way he was going to be. And I didn't want to be the same. Um, so then after that, I got graduated with a history degree. I actually was in a group called with a social group that was there that was for suicide prevention with a person that was a mentor for me. One of the first people that I had that was a mentor that kind of showed me that, he showed me about meditation, which I wasn't really ready for at the time, but doing more now. Kind of showed me kind of doing prevention for other people, kind of getting involved to kind of help other people, and gave me kind of guidance of what, it could be like for a person like me to be involved in that stuff. I found somebody that was kind of a role model that was a person like me that was successful, that was doing well in there, and that could make a difference for other things. So kind of went back to the root of I can make a difference with this stuff. So, so I kind of was like, so after that, I graduate during the Great Recession. So there's no jobs available for history or anything else. And then for a couple of years, I'm kind of doing odd jobs and things like that. And it gets to a point where I'm talking to my parents and I'm like, so I should either probably do something that's teaching or I should do something that's social work because I like to help people. I like to be able to make a difference. One of those things is going to be able to do that. And for me, I felt like social work was the answer for me with that because I felt like I can make more of a difference in an impactful way. And I felt like schools, with my history that I've had with people, wasn't the most. I wanted to be able to make a direct impact on people. I felt like that would probably be the best way for me to do that. So that's the direction I took. I had a couple internships there. One of them wasn't the most exciting internship. The other one, I went to a school to see what that was like as a social worker in a school. I realized I wouldn't be able to make the direct impact I wanted, that I wanted to make more of a difference. So then I kind of went to different types of things. I did care coordination outside of after I graduated. I did working for like at a residential facility, giving out medication, doing counseling, not like kind of like a counselor there, which really isn't really therapy. And then I got a job that somebody gave me an opportunity that was probably the hardest job you could ever have in social work, and the lady told me as such.
And
And from that,
what was that job in social work? That's like the toughest job in social work.
so for this job that I had I was doing assessments for people across New York City. It was part of a New York State initiative where we had to go to places called adult homes and do assessments for people to be able to move into independent housing. So we'd have to go into places that were very much against us being there because they're going to be moving them out to independent housing. We're going to take them out of there. And it was a court ordered thing. So we had to report back to New York State and have assessments sent to them. So what happened was that I'd have to sit with people of varying degrees of people, all different types of things, people that were severely mentally ill, to people that were substance abuse issues, people that were more cognitively functioning, able to do stuff, and everywhere in between. I'd have to go to these places that are dirty, messy, disgusting places with a laptop and go through about a 23-page assessment with people on a computer. Um, and that probably about 5 or 6 people while I'm there doing that. And not only that, I'd have to be able to go to another clinic to get an assessment for them to be able to connect that assessment, have that assessment, social, like a psychosocial would be considered, like a kind of like a brief history of what's going on with their history and kind of diagnosis and stuff like that. Connect that stuff to the assessment that I have, put that stuff together, be able to come up with a report of what I feel like for us as far as that type of process of what type of determination I have in coordination with my boss. Then if I decided the person was not capable of living on housing, I'd have to go in front of the New York State Department of Health in a meeting and explain to the reason why they're not able to do that. And if I didn't get the psychosocial from them on a clinic, I'd have to do them myself, learning information that I had from that meeting, that experience, from medication stuff, and be able to come up with it out of that from like an hour meeting with them with the assessment, come all those things together, be able to come up with a paperwork process to be able to accurately assess, document to make a decision for housing. And I
And
have
that's tough with like if you have to do that within like an hour time frame, you don't like they don't really want you there, and like they have all their other issues going on to try to like, and housing is such a basic human need and right, and that like to not have that, like to like, all right, this person has my fate in their like, How did that take a mental toll on you? I'm curious, did it ever take a kind of mental toll on you? I know from just when I worked at a soup kitchen in Chicago, like that had like a mental kind of toll on me of working. Like it was a beautiful experience, but it was definitely a very tough experience. Um, to be working with kind of the marginalized and like people with mental health issues and like especially substance abuse issues. How did you kind of how were you able to handle that part of it?
It was the biggest stress I had was the fact that I had to be able to make choices of people living in housing or not. And the thing was, there was a conflict between what I felt people were capable of doing as far as clinically and how people were able to function with what New York State would accept as far as determinations for that. So it was a kind of a thing where I have to be able to find the thread the needle for what I felt like for me was the best way to be able to help these people. And I also had to do a certain amount. I'd have to walk into my office every day that I was there, and my boss would put a list of how many assessments were completed per week, and basically would talk about how many assessments we were done. I'd have to look every single week and see how many I got done compared to other people. So I'd have to look and see where I was at, and I was not at the highest level. So I had that pressure of doing that. For me, it was a lot of pressure being able to, number one, I have to be able to deal with a report from government agency. Then I have to decide for myself what kind of determination I have. I have to defend what kind of determination I have. And I have to be able to do all that stuff within a pretty quick time span. And I have to do all that stuff without knowing that much about it. And I'm under pressure from New York State, under pressure from people wanting to live or not live out in the community, being able to under pressure from doing all that work. But I may have to do even more for certain people than others. And then I have to travel. What is even that? I could go to my office. I have to travel to these different places all across New York City. It wasn't like I just could go to one place, do all this stuff. I mean, I was in the Bronx. I was in Brooklyn. I was in Queens. I was all over the place, going to different people in different places with all different types of housing agencies as well, that they had their own issues. I had to deal with housing issues that had their own agency. New York State had their own agenda. The places that live there have their own agenda. And people that want the housing have their own agenda. So I have to deal with 4 or 5 different people with different agendas and be able to put it all together, figure out what I need to do with all that stuff. Plus, I have the people telling me how many assessments I need to get done. So you think about that and you tell me how stressful that would be.
Yeah, that sounds pretty stressful. That sounds like a really stressful really stressful just because it's especially I know when you're dealing with government agencies and certain guidelines with stuff, and then you've got like everyone kind of coming in to pull you in so many directions. How were you able to handle it?
I had good supportive people around me. Probably the best group of coworkers I've ever had. We had a very strong bond. We stayed in a very small, tiny room with each other and kind of talked, which was really how I really cope with it. Um, I didn't stay there for more than a year because the stress was too intense for me. I got really there was only so much I could handle. It was really challenging, honestly, but it taught me so much. I learned so much from that, and every other job I've had from that, it's been easy. And the job I had after that, people would say how hard it is, and then I'd look at it, and it would get me out. I'd be out on time. Everybody else would be staying there late, and I'd be like, "This for me is easy. I know what I need to do for this. This is a piece of cake. I did all this other stuff. You just have to get me to see clients and my notes for 5 minutes. After that, that's easy. I could do that in five. I could do that in 20 minutes, and I'll be done, and I get to go home on time. Yay! So even if I have to see 9 clients a day, for me, that was easier than doing all that other stuff because it was just me being responsible for one person at a time with one person above me doing paperwork that I was practicing doing that year that was way significantly more challenging than this paperwork, which was like a paragraph, 2 paragraphs, and doing a treatment plan, which is like, again, like 4 paragraphs, 5 paragraphs, compared to having to do 23-page assessment with somebody sitting there in front of them, you know. So it was really challenging. It stressed me out for a year. It was really tough. And, I had to walk through fire to get there, but it was a part of my process and part of my way to be able to get a clinical licensure in the state of New York. I really wanted to get a clinical licensure so I could be able to see people one-on-one and be able to do stuff and make a difference. So I thought if that was the first way of being able to have a resume builder to do something that I was going to be able to learn a lot from. At the time, I probably wasn't thinking all these things. I was just wondering why I'm putting myself through this hell. But at the end of the day, I made a couple friends from that. I learned everything I can from that. I felt like I was able to be part of a group of people that I could be at a level where I had to push myself to get there. And I felt like after that, everything else was like, I can be able to do this. I can do this. So after
That's
that, I went.
amazing too, right? It's because it's these sometimes our hardest moments, right? That the struggles in these hardest moments end up like molding us to recognize how strong we really are and how much we can get things done. And I think that's also amazing too, of like it sounds like your team at that job, that like your coworkers, they had a really strong kind of purpose. Everyone kind of knew what they were doing, and like they had that kind of value set of like, all right, we're here, this is a tough job, but you had that support structure. That's amazing. Did your ADHD kind of end up like, did you ever have any flare-ups with that job or the job after that with your ADHD? Did any of the kind of like RSD or any of the ADHD symptoms like come into play? How were you able to handle like your ADHD symptoms? Do you actually, let me ask you this question. You don't have to like, do you take medication now, or are you like not on medication? And how do you handle, like, especially in those high stress situations, how do you handle your ADHD symptoms?
So during that time span, so in school, I took medication probably till I was about in sixth grade. Then I was off medication and I was able to have function, mostly because I had a structure in place that someone really helped me be able to do. They basically made my agenda book, which now can be called a planner of my life. I keep it with me everywhere. I'd have to write everything down in there from every class I did in there. I'd write down notes meticulously. And basically, that's how I was able to function so well and do so well in school, because I wrote down everything that was down that I needed to do. So I had it all written down. Everything needed to be done was done with that. So that I had system for, and I struggled for a while to figure that out with that stuff from work. But having a system really helped me at kind of being able to have a structure, having a thing I need to do, having a plan of having to write down what I need to do, which really helped me being able to do work. Because if I don't have a plan or structure, I'm completely lost. My thing was kind of being able to deal with my stress level and being able to deal with my sensitivity, being able to look at what other people were doing and comparing myself to other people and wondering like what's wrong with me because I'm not doing as well as other people. Why am I this way? And also trying to navigate, trying to deal with politics within companies and organizations. Because even after that, I went to a clinic and worked there, and kind of like being able, how do I get along with these people that are not understanding of me, that don't accept me, that don't do all these things? Like it's kind of like there are certain people that are there and they don't really understand, and you kind of are like, I struggled with sometimes being able to navigate the people aspect of it. For me, I was able to get the medication I needed sometimes for work and other things like that. I'm on medication now because I'm more treatment focused now in a different way than I was before. But for me, the thing that I learned how to be able to deal with it when I had those issues as far as for work related stuff is I really honed in on being able to have a schedule, have a structure that kept me on task doing work. I know that for me, if I don't have a structure, I don't have tasks, I don't know what I need to do, I'm completely lost and I'll completely go onto my own devices. So that kind of kept me on the straight and narrow. I've had other jobs which are a little bit more challenging with that, of kind of creating my own schedule. That's when stuff for me becomes a problem. But for me, the RSD stuff that came along was not really the clients that I worked for, because I really felt good and passionate about what I was doing at the clinic after doing that stuff. For me, it was always, how do I deal with people that I know I don't like, being able to deal with it and not causing me to get frustrated. The fact that people wouldn't listen or understand after sitting in meetings. I hated meetings. I still hate meetings to this day. I wonder why I have to do these meetings. I think to myself, why am I even here? I'm not learning anything about this stuff. This is not happening. So, my ADHD would kick in where I'd just be like, I'm bored. I don't want to be here. What's this purpose of me being here? I'm not learning anything. You're not telling me anything. Why am I here? What's the point of this? Having supervision or doing stuff with certain people telling me information. You're not giving me information I really need. Why am I being here? Why am I doing all this stuff? I've been working with coworkers from other places. It'd be like, I don't feel like I belong here. These people are not like me. What's wrong with me? I'm in a different type of group of people than they are. Kind of socially kind of feeling like, do I belong here? Where do I belong? I mean, like I struggled a long time with work and in general with stuff about figuring out, where do I belong in this world? I didn't know where I belong. I was constantly looking. I'm like, I don't feel like I belong anywhere. What's wrong with me? Because I don't feel like I belong anywhere. Like, so like people over here have all this stuff. Why don't I have this stuff? What's wrong with me? Um, that mentality kind of drove in for me for a long part of my early adulthood type of years, because I was struggling with that type of emotional stuff. Where I, get emotional with dealing with relationships with people and in general, as far as being able to make connections in a way I felt like was me. I had a lot of imposter syndrome where I was trying to hide my feelings and my thoughts because of the history I had with rejection and things like that. So I was always worried and hyper vigilant about that stuff. And when I got frustrated about my job with the other job with that, it was really hard for me to be able to not explode or really get frustrated. What I really found helpful, what I really found for me as a godsend is that my parents got me involved in going to personal training when I was in my mid-20s, which really helped me be able to exercise, and being able found that as really my outlet for being able to deal with all my stress, all my frustration. I took everything out there. So I went to the gym, all my anger, all my frustration, listened to loud music, blasted in my head, and just go. So that I'd be able to get all that angst and all that stuff out. Because before that, you know, when I was a kid, I'd cry in hallways or try to hide myself crying run into a room to cry because it was like I didn't know where else to go. I was struggling with this stuff. Where do I go? There's no safe place for me to be. Um, and still struggled with that, trying to find where a safe place was for me to be. But I kind of developed over time the tools of kind of being able to go to the gym. I learned that was kind of a tool that was probably the most successful tool for me. You know, using planner kind of stuff. I knew that was a successful tool through trial and error. Really, they're kind of learning different types of people, kind of going through different things. Really, though, the challenge for me was trying to navigate the bureaucracy of stuff, because for me, bureaucracy was just very frustrating, because I knew that I could do certain
Because
things telling me.
it's all those social skills, right? Because one of the way you're telling me kind of your story there is that you're really able to hyper focus in on the academic side, but it was the social skills that you really kind of struggled with growing up. So then when you get into later in life, and I really relate too, and I think even non-ADHD people as well probably feel this way of like, where do I belong in this world? I mean, I really related to what you were saying there about that because it, like I felt that like I always had to find myself inside a group to feel like, all right, do I belong here? And even in that group, do I even belong in this group? Am I supposed to be a part of it? And like, and I really love what you were saying too about exercise too. Exercise, I think, is a great, as an amazing tool for ADHDers, just because it gets the endorphins running, we get our serotonin, dopamine going, like, and like you said, helps us get out that frustration, right? Like having an outlet for that, because if not, then it just lives up here and it can lead to depression and other kind of real bad mental disorders and disabilities.
Yeah, I mean, my frustrations were high. I still wake up in the morning really frustrated with stuff. I go on tirades. Family members will hear me go on tirades in the morning, kind of angry at all these different things that are going on. Why is this way? Why are things this way? I still struggle with that stuff. I still do that stuff, and I sometimes still comes out in different places. I'm just lucky right now to have a boss that's more accepting, and trying to find. That's really what I've been worked towards as far as more lately, which has made it easier for me to be able to find jobs. As far as being okay with my jobs, is finding. I've been lucky in a sense that I've been able to find bosses that are not micromanaging and not trying to be able to kind of Eric and kind of go towards all the things that my ADHD is going to follow down with. Because if people kind of go down that path of trying to kind of telling me what to do, I become kind of more defensive and more frustrated, and kind of like, I know what I'm doing. Don't bother me. Just leave me alone. Let me do what I need to do. And kind of get, kind of tell me kind of wanting to do always would frustrate me. I'd like to be able to do my own thing, and kind of be able to kind of take care of myself and do the stuff I need to do. Um, Able to build the structure and have stuff that give me support, being understanding and stuff like that. And kind of when I had people that were more not like that, it became more problematic. I need someone that kind of gives me structure, but at the same time lets me do my thing. So
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's like having a scaffolding, right? Having your structure in kind of place, but not having someone that's micromanaging it down to the final kind of like to the second kind of thing over you, because then it's just like, what are you doing? Like give yourself the freedom to be able to work within your structure. I'm curious, how do you build out, because you've used the word structure in your planner and your routine, in your current day-to-day life, how do you build out your structure? How do you build out your day, so you kind of hit the things that you need to do to manage your ADHD?
I know, so through a lot of doing more recently with a new therapist that I've been with, and in general, I know that exercise is important for me. I also kind of have seen what happens when I don't exercise. So for me, the consequence of knowing that if I don't exercise in the morning, I know how my day is going to go. I know if I don't do any kind of physical activity, I've done stuff where I kind of don't think about stuff exercise wise, and I'll do stuff during the day because I'm so angry and frustrated that, I'll injure myself because I just push myself too far. And I know that if I don't do something that I could push myself too far, I can have a temper tantrum and break something in my house for all that stuff. And when that happens enough times, I see that and I'm like, okay, I know that if I do this, I have a lesser chance of that happening. When I don't do this, this is what happens. So I know how bad it could possibly be if I don't do that. And the thing is that the consequences of me knowing that if I do that, I'll do that, this is what's going to happen. Seeing that over and over and over again happening, because it happened a lot, like kind of stuff happening where I'd injure myself, or stuff more recently, kind of things that would occur, kind of different problems that I had in life would just be so much more intense and frustrating when I did that exercise than when I didn't. That the consequences of me not doing it became too much for me to be able to not do anything. And
Let
if
me
I
ask you this. Oh, something just randomly fell there. What like how much time do you exercise? Is it like an hour, hour and a half? Do you have any specific exercises that you do? Is it like a class? Or do you have like a particular regimen? Like for me, I do about like just like a 15-20 minute thing in the morning. It's nothing too crazy intense, but just to get the body moving. What kind of exercise regimen do you kind of do? What does that look like?
So it depends on how much time I have during the morning day, because I, like most ADHDers do, think I'm going to have a certain amount of time, and basically the time just melts away to the amount of time I don't really have the time I want to do what I need to do. Because I have a plan of how much time I want to spend there, and I have a plan of what kind of things I like to do at the gym because of the experience I've had. And then sometimes in the morning it's a little bit more challenging for me to go, so that plan will kind of be thrown out, which will frustrate me, cause me frustration tolerance, all that other stuff. But for me, my non-negotiables, I need to do some kind of cardio, and at least probably for me on a normal basis when I'm really stuff is probably about 17 or 18 minutes of like going on an elliptical machine, or going on a bike or things like that that are more low impact for me. Running I used to do more often, but I also realized that it takes a toll on your body. So I kind of balance back and forth with that. But for me, I need probably a good 16, 17 minutes of at least moderate cardio to feel okay with my day. And that's kind of where I've managed it out. And I know that timing wise for me that way. For me, I have to do a minimum at least of 10 minutes of some kind of walking. Even for today, I didn't feel great about it. My legs are sore, but I knew that if I didn't do anything before I started my day today, my day was not going to be what I wanted to be. And even though I slept too late, the thing is, ideally, I'd like to have an hour at the gym to be able to do weights, do all the different things. I have a whole plan and things that I've done in the past for my work weight training, from my personal trainer that gave me, again, a structure. So I have a structure of what I can do, things, so I know what kind of plan I have in my head. So I know I do this, this, and this on this day. And on this day, I do this, this, and this, but these are the variations I can possibly do. So I have a structure in place. I know what can be done. He made a list for me. So I asked him to make a list for me because I knew if I didn't have a list, I wouldn't know what I was doing. So I had more time. When I had more free time, I made it easier for me to do all those things, but it's more of a challenge. So I at least try to do at least 15 minutes to 20 minutes of cardio. And if not, I'll do more like other like weight training exercises and things like that. I feel like I really want to do that twice a week. But my non-negotiable is always to do some kind of cardio. Because if I don't do that, I know that my emotional dysregulation is just going to go off, and I'm going to just, all the frustration tolerance is just not going to be there. So
And that's amazing too, really, because it's just it like and having I like how you said the word non-negotiable of like, all right, knowing that for the management of like the ADHD and the management of the stress levels and everything else, and it's 15 minutes, right? It's not like 15 to 16 minutes, not like a long period of time, but it's enough that gets you sweating, gets you going, allows that kind of heart rate to get up, and allows us to really activate the body, right? And it's getting that activation in play. No, that's amazing. And I also love too what you were saying there of like you asked for it, right? I think this is one of the things that I struggle with too is asking for what I need and like, hey, I need this thing's worked out. Has that always come easy to you to ask for your needs or your kind of tools to develop that structure?
it comes and goes, with different things. Um, Normally out of necessity, I kind of, what happens is that sometimes I will not have a structure, and it will get to a point where there's a breaking point where it kind of is a now or never type of thing, where if I don't do this, I know these things are going to be bad consequences for me. Sometimes the problem is that sometimes I have bosses that are a little bit too lenient, so it kind of makes it more challenging for me to do those things. Um, but for me, like I kind of, it sometimes is more challenging or not. but the thing I've had to always do is advocate for myself, because I've always kind of been in the system where they kind of have tried to tell me that I'm not good enough, that I'm not something like that I can't do stuff. And then when I did something when I was in school, you don't get these services anymore. You can't have these services anymore because you're fine, you're good, you're whatever. And the thing was is that my mom was always very showing of advocacy for me, and I knew that if I didn't get what I need, it would be a problem for me. I still struggle with this stuff all the time, because the thing is, like, I'll have stuff for certain things I'll be able to advocate for myself for, but other things I'll struggle mightily to be able to advocate for myself for. So I'm able to be able to ask for like kind of more things to be able to show me structure, more things like that. Um, for me going out to different types of people and asking for information for me is really what I strive for, is kind of keep asking new people for more information to be able to get the information I need. Continually not worry about stepping on people's toes other than getting the information I need for work related stuff. But for my personal life stuff, I'm not as advocacy for myself and that type of stuff. I kind of hold back and kind of more reserved and kind of more questioning as far as if this is the right thing to do or not. If I'm going to step on toes, are these people going to like me? If I do this stuff, they're not going to like me. They're not going to be doing this stuff. If I advocate for this, are they going to accept me for who I am? Because I've always had that in the back of my head. There's something wrong with me. There's something that's different about me. These people all didn't around me. What's going on with me? Why am I like this? So, the thing was I always was hesitant about telling people what I need out in the world with friendships or being able to have intimate relationships, about kind of telling people what I need, because I'm always afraid of people rejecting me. Not rejection sensitivity was always so high, worried about the fact that I would be, having that same type of feeling again. It would come back to me again. So my worry was always, if I tell people what I need outside of work, what is that going to mean? Because people have always told me I'm smart. So I knew if I was intelligent with work, I knew at some point when I survived that job through hell, that's when I knew that I could be able to get through anything with that. But the other stuff became a thing where it became always was like, for me, there was always this struggle and this dichotomy between, I know I'm smart, I can do this. Sometimes I would have stuff where I'd kind of question my work ability to do stuff. But I always would go back to the fact that I found a structure I was able to find through fire. It would do the stuff what I need to do. But for me, I always questioned my ability to ever be able to deal with the rejection sensitivity of dealing with people and them rejecting me for who I was.
And it comes back to what you were saying earlier too, especially of growing up, of being bullied and feeling kind of less than and feeling different, right? Like I know for me in social situations, it took me a long time of personal development and things to kind of like love my inner child, because my inner child was hurt so much as a kid that now I have this natural response to the world of like, oh, they must not just like me because I'm weird, I'm different, I'm odd, I'm not a part of. Do you think it maybe that has to something like goes back to this kind of like early childhood traumas and wounds, especially on the social side? Because it's funny because I'm a really like I've been told this a lot. I'm a very good speaker, but I struggle, absolutely struggle with writing. Like, and it came down to my ADHD because at 9, they basically in my class of 27 kids, I was the first kid diagnosed. So they basically were like, "All right, cool. You don't really have to do any of the writing assignments. You can just like talk or type it out or something like that." So now, as an adult, anytime I have to do something written down, it creates this overall anxiety inside of me because it's like if I misspell a word, and even though like, it's easy to spell check things and stuff like that, I get super frustrated and like it comes back to that inner child. You mentioned that you worked with a therapist. How has that been? How has that experience been for you, especially with your ADHD and kind of the RSD and the social anxiety stuff?
So, I've been in and out of therapies. My parents were very proactive about me being in therapy when I was younger. And so I've been in and out of therapy, and I finally found a therapist more recently that was kind of more focused on ADHD, and kind of decided that I'm going to commit myself to doing that stuff. And really what I worked on a lot was kind of being able to heal the fact and being able to forgive myself for what the guy was as a kid to do, because I had trouble forgiving myself for what kind of stuff I was doing. It felt like it was my fault that I was that way. Um, and like being a kid, you're innocent and you don't do that, but you feel like you should have done something differently. You should have been able to protect yourself. You should have done something, because then you're like, I didn't do anything to protect myself. I let this stuff happen. I did this stuff. There's something wrong with me. Why did I let this stuff happen to me? And no one was there. And what's wrong with me? So I had to do a lot of that type of stuff, because it wasn't I think, growing up when I was younger, it wasn't really understood with ADHD, all the other complexities that came with it. A lot of the stuff that I kind of learned involving myself with ADHD conferences when I was younger, being more involved in the whole system with that, was I felt like a lot of it was based upon school type of stuff and not about all the other all encompassing pieces of ADHD that make up who I was. So I wasn't really even aware that until I was much older, as I was a kid, that it wasn't my ADHD. It wasn't that I had ADHD that was part of all this process of causing me projective sensitivity dysphoria. Because when I was growing up, there was no such thing as a sensitivity dysphoria. There was no such thing as an accountability coach. No such thing as any of those things. It was just like, this is a school disorder. You do all school work and stuff like that. That's what it's about, not everything else.
And then when you get 18 and
So
graduate high school, it's like you don't have ADHD anymore, right? Because that was when I was like, oh, it disappears at 18, which I never understood, but I was told that as well. It's like, all right, at 18, it just goes away. I'm like, but if it's a neurological, how does that work? It doesn't though. It's
yeah, it was a struggle. I mean, for me, like originally I was told about papers, not writing papers well, and that I would be too much outside the lines of doing stuff, right? I've run on sentences forever. My thing was always I would do tests because I would do homework, I would do tests. And that would be, but I wouldn't study at home. I never learned how to study because I did well in classes. So my mom wouldn't be able to force me to take studying, so he couldn't get me to study. I hated doing any of that stuff. So it just made it easier, except for maybe I had to learn later on in my high school that I actually had to do that. But for me, papers were the biggest bane of my existence because if there were longer papers, the deadlines were longer. I would wait to the last minute. I'd basically make my entire family completely crazy because I would put myself under so much pressure to write the papers at the very last minute, getting them done, and it would be like insanely high pressure stakes. I would not, and the thing was is that my reading was always not enough detail. Everything was in there. It was kind of a run-on sentence, or it was too short, and I kind of was like I didn't have a structure and know what to do with that stuff. And it was always like I was like I have all these words. I know all these words, like, and then like I'm writing these things, like they don't like what I write, like I get angry about that. Like I know what, like, so like I'd be able to talk things out, but writing things down for me was like the worst thing in the world because I have to formally write the way that they want me to write. I don't know what to do with this. They don't like guide you with this stuff. They give you a piece of paper and they tell you this is what you do for what things, but they don't practice it with you. Go home and do it. Yeah, good luck to you. Um, and I it was kind of like I didn't really understand until I started to learn later on how to write. I had a teacher in college that at my undergraduate degree, she had made me had to write a paper about 4 or 5 times for me to graduate for my bachelor's degree. She would not let me graduate. I was walking, but she would not let me graduate until I finished the paper the way she wanted me to do it. So I had to go to a writing center for about like 4 or 5, like 3 or 4 times a week for probably about a few months and rewrite the paper over and over and over again. And I hated this lady. She's still the bane of my existence. I was so angry at her for such a long time. But after that, I learned how to write. And after doing that other place that was really, really hard work, I learned how to do every type of writing social work had to offer. So I got through hell through a lot of these things. It was really, really hard for me to do those things, but I learned more stuff than I got out than anything else. And for me, that's what I got out of that stuff. And for me, I was always worried growing up as a kid with socialization that fire, that pain was going to be way too much for me to be able to touch. So I was stuck in that place for a long time where I'm going to have to touch this stuff. This is going to hurt a lot. All my rejection sensitivity, all that type of stuff that I have, all those questions about myself in my head, all the frustration tolerance that I'm going to have to deal with, all of my symptoms are going to be there. So all those things are all going to pop up with me and the problems I have. So how much is that going to be worth it? Because I'm going to have to go through all this pain and all this emotional struggle to do this. Even though I was doing all that other stuff, for me, that was like, this is way worse. This is going to be way worse to me. In my own head, this is what I'm thinking. This is going to be way worse than other stuff. This stuff I could do. I've done this forever. I've gone through that pain. Other stuff, way too hard. Can never do that. I did that for a long time. But with my newer therapist I have now, it's kind of been more structured. She's held me more accountable. She's kind of done stuff where she kind of tells me, just get out of the house. Just do stuff. Be out there doing. Because if you do stuff, that's when you're able to improve with this stuff. If you don't do stuff and you stay in your house, you know what's going to happen. This is what happens. So, and then like, it was like just changing from exercising later in the day to exercising in the morning. Because if you wait till later, your frustration tolerance, all your anger, your RSD, all that stuff is going to just flare up and it's just going to be one big pile of boiling pot of water thrown everywhere. But I learned how to do that, number one, through me having to actually go through those experiences doing that. Because even with my therapist, who was extremely well trained and being able to do that stuff, I didn't really know. I don't really focus on that stuff. I just had those things and the emotional flare ups, and I'm just like, this sucks, but I'm angry. I hate this world. I hate the world. Why is the world doing this to me? I'm angry at everybody. This is really frustrating. I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I even have some days when I do it now where I'm just like, I can't do this today. Like, this is just, I'm frustrated. I walk, something minute bothers me at work, ruins my whole day, throw everything around. This is not going to happen. Why am I even working today? I just need to go home and not work anymore because this is too much. I don't want to do this. But I have people around me, thankfully, that kind of talk me off that place of being able to pull myself back and be able to give myself an opportunity. And I find that if I give myself an opportunity to not let myself completely throw myself off the deep end with that I'm able to get stuff done. But I have to kind of have that support and have that stuff to pull myself back and be aware. And the more I practice with my therapist about being able to be more aware, finding the tools to be able to calm myself down through getting meditation, shorter meditation, so I wouldn't feel like, for me, doing a long meditation would be so overwhelming. Because the thing for me was I was worried about doing a 20-minute meditation was going to be like nightmare. It was going to be like needles in my arms. But I felt like doing a shorter one was something that's more attainable. Doing something that's smaller. I mean, I started off socializing, doing online groups. Then I started doing one thing a week for doing like an improv class. And then I built out to doing acting classes. And then I started doing like a sports activity league. So I built myself up over time doing this stuff, giving
Yeah,
myself a chance to.
you're taking the baby steps, right? Baby steps of like pulling yourself out of the house, starting to do that socialization, and like, all right, we went from the improv to the acting to the league, and now you're getting out there, and it's because I think you're very like right on of like we have to kind of go through the fire to see kind of our metal, but it's also, I know for me personally, like yourself, the the teachers that were the toughest on me and the mentors that were the toughest and that pushed me the most, the ones I didn't like the most, to be perfectly honest with you, but they were the
Yeah,
ones that gave me the right tools, and I respect them now even more as like as I go into my own coaching program, that of like, all right, you're having to kind of, that tough love approach does have an effective kind of way of like, no, all right, like here's the standard, here's the what we want done. All right, no, rewrite the paper again and again, and it's through that practice and that repetition that we get it really kind of down. You had mentioned there about kind of social groups. I would love to know, how has the men's ADHD support group helped you since you've joined?
I feel like for me, it's been able to help people be able to find people that are, like you, and being able to find other people there that are able to, number one, give other people information, which is helpful, but also be able to kind of have like-minded people to feel like that there is a group of people that do belong in this group, of that I can be able to turn to or be able to communicate with about different things. Being able to have that type of connection, of being able to know different people that I know have different types of strengths, and being able to connect with them and being able to communicate, and being able to know that I can make more of a difference. Because for me, one of the biggest things that I learned growing up, and what I've even learned now, and the more I've done this stuff in general, the more I can make a difference, being able to help people in general be able to improve lives, and being able to see what ADHD is. And if people don't have to go through the struggle that I went through, even if it's for a little bit, that will make it easier for other people to do that. And I want to be able to change that thing. And I think for me, part of the men's ADHD support group that does this stuff for me is being able to, number one, being able to help other people be able to learn, being able to improve, and kind of being able to see what they can do. Number two, being able to work with other like-minded professionals that are in this group that are, extremely talented for various things, and being able to lean on them for support and information, and just kind of being able to be part of a community of different people that I know I can be more, be more candid about with things, and being able to find people and you feel like, what, they do get what I'm saying. They do understand where I'm coming from, and having that type of thing where, there are people like me that are intelligent people that do have these things and just struggle with these type of issues, same type of issues that I have. Because it's really challenging, building up, going out to doing all these social things in general, feeling like, do these people really understand me? Because I feel like I'm not understood, because I've gone through life so many times, and so many people, like, do I tell people what's going on with me? Because they're not going to understand where I'm coming from. And I feel like they look at this blank stare in my face. So it's kind of like having somebody to talk to in a group and be like, I understand. I've been there. I know where you're coming from. I know what this is like, you know, and kind of giving the practical information of knowing that this is where it comes from. This is what you can do. This is what you can be able to achieve. I've done this. This is what I know works. And kind of having that thing where I kind of now kind of tell people from those experiences I had about being more accountable with my job, my profession, with what I do now, with being more private practice work when I'm working with people that are ADHD and people that have done work with a lot of younger individuals and older individuals as well with ADHD. What I've learned about that type of stuff, I've integrated into my own practice, being able to have more accountability, being able to be more tough, being able to hold the line. Because I know for me that the biggest thing is that having more accountability, not less, having just a conversation with them about what they're doing every week is not enough. Because that's just going to be able to do the same type of story. Because people with ADHD in general, I'll speak for myself, will be able to tell a whole story. But the thing is, actually doing the stuff is really what's more important. That repetition of having to do the paper 5 times, being able to have to, kind of have somebody that gave me a structure to do stuff, having, people that kind of believed in the fact that I'm intelligent, that I can do this stuff. It didn't accept the fact that this is what I was doing, that it was not enough, that I can do more, that I can do this stuff more. And saying that this is what you can do, this is what you're able to do, and that, you're different sort of changing yourself if you don't do that stuff. You have to be able to do that stuff. You have to practice doing that stuff, or else it's not worth it. You have to be putting yourself in that effort and holding people accountable. For myself, even my own job now, when I do that stuff, working with people privately, holding people accountable. I never would have done all this type of level of stuff and being okay with that type of stuff. When I was younger, being more outspoken, all those type of things, I was definitely uncomfortable being outspoken about these type of issues and these type of things. I was afraid how people were going to think or be able to respond to this stuff. And now I see being able, for me, the biggest thing about my job that I do that I feel like is great for me is I'm able to be myself, able to be that person, be able to kind of impart that knowledge of being accountable and being able to kind of call out people for when they're doing something and saying this stuff. Is that really true? Is this really about you? What can you do? The more accountability you have for ADHD, the better it is. We pull up against it so hard. We sometimes get really angry at it. We feel like, why are these people doing this to us? Why are these people putting us through torture? I don't need to be put through this torture. I can do this other stuff. I don't want to do this. You have to be ready for it, obviously. But for me, those type of experiences have guided me so much, and I really want to be able to give back, be able to kind of give people that information and that knowledge if I can, to be able to have their lives be better and not have to go through all the same type of struggles that I went through, and be able to kind of have improvement and know what's out there and that things can be done, and that people, you can be successful in certain areas. Like you can be successful like me, you can be able to do stuff, and it doesn't stop you from being the person that you want to be. It's not a crutch that you have to say that this is because I have this, that I can't be the person I want to be. And finding out who that person is really who you are, and not kind of trying to be the person that everybody else wants you to be, or not even that, the person that you think everybody else wants to be. Because I think that I thought so many times about, if I was just like this person, then I'd be happy. If I just had these things, I'd be happy. If I just did this, if I was just like this person, then I'd be better. If I just, going into a club, looking at these guys, if I was just like that guy, my life would be better. I can do all these things. I know all these things. I know all this stuff. I know I'm better than this person, but they're doing that stuff. Why am I not like them? And it, still sometimes happens in my head. It's going to happen. I know it's going to happen forever. I'm always going to still be in that place where I'm going to still question that stuff. It's not going to be 100% perfect. But the more I put myself out there in these situations, the more I'm able to give back to these people, individuals in general within the support group, and be able to be part of that group. The better I'm able to break down that stigma, break down that type of thing, break down that stuff, and being able to speak out against what I know, what I've learned in school, what I've learned in the world, and being able to impart that thing to try to make a change so that breaks that down. Because for me, I'm kind of tired of having that happen for all of us in general. The more we know about being able to be accountable, the more we can put accountable to each other, the better it is, because then we've all been there, and we all know what that experience is. So we can't lie to each other because we know what it's like. So
That's amazing. Yeah. And like I can just tell by your passion, and I like I can see, what do you think is the biggest benefit or advantage that being an ADHD and a social with like and being a social worker, how does ADHD bring an advantage into, I guess you kind of already kind of mentioned it there, of do you feel like you're able to connect better with your clients and being able to, have you seen like, have you seen that through your experiences? Have you been able to see a better improvement for someone who's gone through these things versus maybe someone who's gone to a counselor, or someone who hasn't, like has ADHD and tried to like, because you mentioned before you had a therapist who wasn't really ADHD informed, your current one does. do you feel that that really kind of gives you that kind of, let's say edge, but that kind of other tool in your toolbox to really help your clients?
Yeah, I mean, I've leaned more towards now than privately being able to work with people more exclusively, people that have, like kind of Asperger's, ADHD, those type of cluster of things, because it's normally all connected to each other. And I really feel like those experiences have really helped me being able to work with people with that, because I can kind of show them, I have a planner. This is what I do. I know that when I do this, this is what's helpful for me. I know that this what works. And the thing is, coming from a place of authenticity, when you're telling them, the people that you're telling them what you're doing works, people can see and people can hear what you're saying. People know when you're telling people the truth and they're being told a story. And when you kind of tell people this is where I'm coming from, and you see that these people have similar things, I feel like people with ADHD, not saying people that are other people in the social work field don't have understanding of it, but I feel like people with ADHD have a better understanding of what it's like to be with ADHD and have to live with it. Not saying that other people, that therapists that don't have ADHD can't be successful in being able to treat that, or have therapists that are able to do that successfully. But I feel like that does give me an edge. It does give me an ability to understand where that comes from, and can show that my experiences actually can be helpful, and that you can do this stuff because I've done it before. So if I can do it, you can do it too. So it's kind of like being able to have that type of thing where, listen, right, I'm coming from a place of where I know. This is what I know. This is what I do. This is what I feel, and just being passionate about it. People can see that in my eyes. They can see what I'm saying is really what I feel. And they know what I'm saying is 100% true because they can see what I'm doing. I don't just say what I do, I actually do stuff. And people know when you're actually doing that stuff or not. The more I've gotten older, the more I've realized that people notice what you're doing, whether you think they're noticing you or not. They're still going to notice. I used to think people wouldn't notice me. I still, like, sometimes some questions like that, but the more recent things I've seen have told me that they notice. And I missed out on all those signals for so long. But I realized that they notice. If you're doing stuff and you're showing that this is what you do, this is what you know, this is what you're passionate about, people buy into that stuff. They lean into that stuff. They want more of that stuff.
Exactly.
For me,
It's like
that's
you're
always
saying,
been
it's like you're saying before, of like trying to be other people, instead, like focus on being the best you can be, right? You can't take outside things to fill your inside hole. But when you start to work on that inside kind of work and those values and really focus on your passions, and it's you against you, in the measuring stick of life, you kind of really get through it. We're getting close to the hour there. Like I could talk to you for a good 6 hours, so we could keep going on this. But I
oh,
want to I end on a rapid fire and kind of a, because you mentioned some good points here. What would you say are your top five kind of tools or things that you use for your ADHD? I know you mentioned a few of them, but if you want to go over a few of them, I know you mentioned exercise, accountability, structure. If you want to like just give me a quick top five and a little bit about each one, and we'll kind of wrap it up there.
exercise helps to be able to build up more space to be able to not be as frustrated as quickly. Also has endorphins, makes you feel better about your day. Organization structure helps me remember stuff, so I don't, also because if I don't write it down, I'm not going to remember it, and it will make me feel really bad if I don't. I still struggle with this, but it really helps being able to kind of keep track of things as best as I can be. Still hard on myself with that, but it really gives me a place where I can go to and things are in there because I know I'm not going to remember it. Being able to have meditation where I can be able to go to do it for like 5 minutes and kind of recharges my batteries. I feel like it kind of gives me that reset. I'm able to kind of refocus my time. Um, I'm not sure how many numbers I was at with this.
You're at three, three or four,
So
three or four. Yeah.
four for me is being able to going. For me, the thing is putting myself out there, being out there in the world. Is really important. I've learned that more now than ever before. And also challenging yourself. Really, with people with ADHD, we have trouble challenging ourselves. But if we challenge ourselves, which is really, I feel like for me, the biggest thing, that's when we're successful. When we're out in the world challenging ourselves, that's when we gain success. I mean, podcasts also help as far as being able to calm yourself down and kind of doing things that re-enrich you and kind of bring you back to yourself. But all these things I talk about here, they're all about bringing you back to yourself. We struggle mightily looking for other people to give us that type of thing and validation for other people for that stuff. And it's really, really impossible to do that. And I fought so long to do that, and realizing that all these things, exercise brings me back to myself, meditation brings me back to myself, podcast brings me back to myself, keeping here keeps me on track with being myself. Because I fight with that so hard all the time. And that's the reason why I'm able to be where I am now. So
That's amazing, Judd. No, I absolutely love that. I totally agree with all those points, right? It's a coming back into ourselves again. I think that's a great line there. If anyone wanted to reach out to you for even doing for your private client work or anything like that, how would they be able to reach out to you?
sure. I have an email address. It's hold on a second. Let me give you my email address and everything like that. I have it all up here. Just give me 1 second. I have it. Complete ADHD moment. Everything is not 100% prepared. Shocking thing. Um, one of
You
the
can
websites.
send that to me and I'll make sure to leave it in the comments below and within the description as well. So also don't forget if you are watching this on Facebook, give Judd a friend request. He's an amazing friend. You have been an amazing resource in the men's group. Absolutely love over the last few months that we've gotten to know each other and see each other grow. I consider you a friend, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person at the ADHD International Conference in Baltimore coming up in the end of November. Um, Also, one last quick little note, if you guys do want to support the men's ADHD support group, I'll also put a link down there to if you're looking to volunteer or to donate. This is an amazing organization that both Judd and I are part of that help men with ADHD so we can give you that support, those things that you need so you feel that, like Judd said, to have that space where you can feel comfortable and be a part of a group of men who are looking to improve themselves, master their ADHD so it doesn't master them, and to get the most out of it and have that support. Judd, any give you the final word there. Any last thing you want to leave our viewers with?
Don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on putting yourself out there, and always give yourself an opportunity to be successful. Because if you don't give yourself an opportunity to be successful, you won't. But if you give yourself a chance, at least then you have an ability to give yourself a shot. And giving yourself a shot, you're able to see what you can do. And when you do that, there's way more there than you think.
Exactly. Like every journey begins with the very first step, right? And it's like that's how you climb the mountain, just taking that first step and taking that action. So, Jed, thank you so much for joining me on this interview. Really appreciate you here. Appreciate everyone for watching. Thank you so much. If you are interested in doing an interview with me, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to reach out to Judd or myself if you have any questions about ADHD. And with that, though, guys, I'll see you on the next one. You have a great, if not better day.